How's it going, everyone? TakeT88 here, and today I'm excited to bring you a video covering video game consoles, more specifically the PlayStation 3 Super Slim. Now, I know this channel is associated more with fishing than video games, but if you've ever read the description of my channel, you can see that I talk about fishing, video games, movies, and so I have additional hobbies that I'm very interested in, that I'm passionate about, that I would like to make videos on. Now, I actually tried to make a couple of movie reviews. Rambo First Blood Part 2 was the first one I tried to post, but I got copyright striked. I'm going to do a whole video on that, about how crazy it is to try to do movie reviews. Unless you're a big YouTuber, you can't really do video movie reviews, depending on who the publishing company is. But let's not get into all that. Let's talk about the PlayStation 3 Super Slim. So, why am I making this video today? I'm making this video because the PlayStation 3 Super Slim has gotten unnecessary hate and negativity over the years. Even before it was released, people were dogging on this console, and I've never understood why. And this thing got such heat that I never even considered buying it until it came up on Facebook Marketplace one day back in 2017, 2018, and the guy was selling it for 25 bucks, and I immediately messaged him, said, yep, I want it. We met, I got it that day because I knew it was going to go really fast, and he said he already had like 3 other people wanting to buy the console. So I got this thing for 25 bucks. Amazing. Even back in 2017, when video game collecting was much cheaper, this was still a huge steal. Because the PlayStation 3 was still kind of relevant. It was only the previous generation before. It was older, but it was still somewhat still relevant. People were still playing PlayStation 3 online at that time, unlike really now. But anyway, so when this console first came out, even before it came out, YouTubers, video game reviewers were dogging on this console, saying that it was a cash grab for Sony, which it kind of was, but they went about it in the best possible way. And the reason why I say it was Sony kind of doing a cash grab is because they had never been profitable on selling PlayStation 3s up until the PlayStation 3 Super Slim. When they made the original PlayStation 3, the backwards compatible fat, they were losing like $200. Don't quote me on that number. I'm pretty sure it was $200. They were losing $200 on every console sale. They were selling it for a $200 loss per console. That's insane. Then they tried to make things a little bit cheaper. They took out the backwards compatibility with the next generation of the PlayStation 3 fats. So that made it about $50 cheaper, or they were losing only $50 or $50 less dollars. So they were losing like $150 per console. Then they came out with this PlayStation 3 Slim. This made it so that they were only losing about $100 per console. So they never were profitable on the PlayStation 3 until the PlayStation 3 Super Slim. And that's because they cut some things out of it. They cut the automatic drive, and they put in a top loader disk drive, which I'll go into more detail with that in a little bit here. And they optimized the internals to make it so that it was much cheaper to manufacture. So they are finally profitable. That's why it's considered kind of a cash grab, because they wanted to be profitable and show their shareholders that they could be profitable when it came to console making. So that's why I say it was a cash grab. So Sony was technically cash grabbing, but they went about it in the best possible way. So how did they go about this cash grab in the best possible way? Well, they designed and created a console that you can tell that they really cared about. You can tell, if you compare how Sony treated the PlayStation 3 versus the PlayStation 4, and especially now the PlayStation 5, you can tell that they adored this console. And gaming was just different back then too. Sony definitely was trying to be more pro-consumer than what they are now. And you can just tell, again, I keep saying it, that they really cared about the PlayStation 3. And why do I say that? That they showed with this cash grab, right? That how can a cash grab show that they cared? Well, it's the way they went about designing this thing. So let's look at how they designed it, the looks of this console. So let me move these out of the way. And there's a reason why I have these PlayStation, the PlayStation and the PlayStation 2 here. It's because of the design of this. So let's just go over why I think Sony really cared about this cash grab, and they were very thoughtful and creative when it came to this cash grab of the PlayStation 3 Super Slim. So if you look at the overall design of the PlayStation 3 Super Slim, you can see it's still pretty much the overall shape of a PlayStation 3, but it is just much smaller. It's about 30 to 40% smaller overall than the PlayStation 3 Slim. As you can see, it's got that oval shape to it, just like the PlayStation 3 Slim, and then going back to the PlayStation 3 Fat, it has that same kind of oval design to it. But then it doesn't end there. It's calling back to the original PlayStation 3 Fat with this mirror or piano black glossy finish on both the front and the back. That's calling back to the PlayStation 3 Fat. But it's calling back to the PlayStation 1 and 2 in this design because it's a top loader. The PlayStation 3 Super Slim is a top loader. And I don't think a lot of people realized when it comes to this console what Sony was doing. Sony was absolutely doing callbacks to their previous generation consoles, the PlayStation and the PlayStation 2. And top loaders is in Sony's DNA. The PlayStation 1 was a top loader. This console right here, top loader. The PlayStation 2 Slim, that was a top loader. I wish I owned that, but I don't own it currently. And then this Slim here, Super Slim, is a top loader. It makes perfect sense that a PlayStation 3 Super Slim would be a top loader because A, it's a callback to their other consoles. B, it's much cheaper to produce. And C, it's really cool how they designed this console. The top loader feature, if you look here, it will open up pretty quickly when you click this button right here. But if you have it vertical, watch this. It goes down much slower. That is a really cool way to go about a top loader. Yes, is it a cheaper version? Is it a little bit louder because you can hear the disc spinning up in there versus the internal automatic disc tray? Yes, it is cheaper. Yes, technically this console was made at a much cheaper price than the Slim and the Fat, but it doesn't mean it's a bad console. As long as you make something cheaper, but you still make a good quality product and you make it at least interesting and look good and reliable, what's the problem? Why would anyone have an issue with this system here? Because it was just made cheaper. And people complained and said that is creaky. Yeah, it's a little on the creaky side. This is definitely more of a robust design. But the Xbox 360, I should have brought that out here. That thing is creaky as hell. Everyone talks about how this is a creaky system. The 360 is much creakier than this. This was made, in my opinion, much better quality than the Xbox 360. I own the S. I've used the E. The E is the least creaky of them all, but for the most part, the 360 is not a very well put together console when you compare it to the PlayStation 3 lineup. But anyway, so that's the PlayStation 1 callback, is with this top loader feature. Then you might be wondering to yourself, well, what's the PlayStation 2 callback? The PlayStation 2 callback is this grid like texture that they put here, as you can hear with my fingers as I'm rubbing across it. And how is that calling back to the PlayStation 2? Well, the PlayStation 2 literally has flat black grids, grids all over the system. You see these here? That is definitely calling back to the PlayStation 2. So Sony, you can tell, like I said earlier, Sony did really care about the PlayStation 3, and they put a lot of thought and creativity into the design of the Super Slim. They made it a top loader to make it cheaper, but it's also calling back to their older consoles. They put this grid design on it to call back to the PlayStation 2, and they put the the piano black glossy finish on the edges to call back to the actual fat PlayStation 3. So they were working with a lot. They try to put a lot of callbacks into this one console, which again makes me feel as if they really cared about this console. So let's go into the internals now. So how did they make this console better internally? Because the internals of this console are better than the PlayStation 3 Slim and the Fat when it comes to optimization and when it comes to keeping it cool. Now the PlayStation 2 Fat with the PlayStation 2 backwards compatible, that I would say that's better. However, from what I have seen, the PlayStation 2 backwards compatibility on that fat PlayStation 3 isn't as good as what people think it might be, because it doesn't always play the games as well as your actual PlayStation 2. It is much lower frame rates a lot of the times. Not with every game, but a lot of games, it has a much lower frames per second versus the actual PlayStation 2. So yes, it's cool to have that backwards compatibility with the PlayStation 3 to the PlayStation 2, but it's not necessary. Just go out and buy yourself a PlayStation 2. You can find them for like $50 now. They're a dime a dozen. They're reliable enough. You can find them in the wild. And also too, I've almost forgot to mention, this is compatible. All PlayStation 3s are compatible with PlayStation 1 games. So you can put a PlayStation 1 disc in here and it will read it perfectly fine. And they play PlayStation 1 games very well. But internally, let's get back to talking about the internals of this system. So what Sony did was that they made the motherboard about 30% smaller than the motherboard in the PlayStation 3 Slim. And it's probably, I think if I remember correctly, it's more than half or less than half the size of the PlayStation 3 Fat motherboard. So they really made things, or optimized circuitry paths, and made the chips much smaller than what is found on the Slim and the Fat PlayStation 3. They made the chip so small for the CPU, GPU, and the RAM that they didn't even have to use any, for the CPU and GPU, they didn't have to use any type of thermal pasting on here. They're just using little rubber covers that transfer heat off from the chips themselves. And this thing is cool. You would think without having that thermal pasting to transfer the heat, that this system would run hot. No, it runs much cooler and quieter than the PlayStation 3 Slim and the Fat. The only loud part to this system is the disc tray. When you're hearing the game spinning up and the laser or going back and forth reading the disc, you can kind of hear that. It's kind of loud, a little annoying. It doesn't bother me all that much. But I have heard people complain about it on YouTube, and it is kind of a legitimate complaint because the Slim and the Fat are not nearly as loud when it comes to reading the discs as the PlayStation 3 Super Slim. So that is a fault of the PS3 Super Slim. However, it's not a big deal. I would rather have a much more reliable and runs cooler. And when your system runs cooler, it will run games better. I've noticed that games like, let's just say, Red Faction Armageddon, that when you're playing in horde mode, that is putting this console or pushing it to its limits. And the PlayStation 3 never misses a beat. The frames hardly ever drop. But when I'm using my Slim, I do notice that the frames do drop a little bit more because this system isn't as optimized. It still is going to run the game perfectly acceptable, perfectly fine for console standards. However, it isn't going to run it as well as the PlayStation 3 Super Slim. And you also have to take in consideration the Fat and the Slim are older consoles. They were being manufactured years before the PlayStation 3 Slim. Or Super Slim. They started making the PlayStation 3 Super Slim from 2012, I think, all the way to 2014 or 2015. I think it was 15. So if you can find a model that is from a PlayStation 3 Super Slim, no matter what, it's going to be 5, 6, 7 years newer than a Slim or a PlayStation 3 Fat or backwards compatible system. So the components in these are already going to be years newer, which means it's going to last years longer versus the Slim and the Fat. And on top of that, they optimized everything within it to make it run cooler, better, smoother, quieter, other than the disc tray. But everything about the system is better than the Slim and the Fat, other than the backwards compatibility in the tray. So that is why as you can tell, I am excited about this console. I wish it didn't get as much hate as it does. It's a phenomenal console. If you're looking to buy a PlayStation 3 and you're looking to start collecting PlayStation 3 games, if you can find them, because they're not as available or prevalent out there in the wild as the Slim, if you can find a PlayStation 3 Super Slim for a decent price, buy it. You will not be you will not regret this purchase whatsoever. It will be the best way to play your PlayStation 3 games using original hardware. The PlayStation 3 Slim is still going to be a fantastic option too, but if you can find the PlayStation 3 Super Slim, go out and buy that console today if you are wanting to collect for the PlayStation 3. So that's all I got for today, guys. I'm looking forward to see what comments I see down below, if I get any at all. I know this has been kind of a longer video, longer than what I normally do, but I just wanted to go over as many details as I could remember in the moment, and express to you guys how much I do love this PlayStation 3. So that's all I got for you guys today. I will see you next time.